All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back here to Kickin It With Knuble. Mike, we were back, episode 21. It's been a bit. I know you were out traveling a little bit. How are things?
Good. I'm back a little tanner, a little leaner, a little meaner. Went out west to Phoenix, got some
Golfing
golf. And
yet?
this time of year is like, Michigan has just been so cold, and to get out there is 85 and sunny, not a cloud in the sky, and kind of get out there and you ask yourself, why do we live in Michigan again? Like why are we out there? But yeah, did a little hiking, kind of go up. Man, that's
Right.
humbling, man. Some of these little mountains, they're not even that hard, and people are flying by you going up the hills. And
Oh yeah,
I'm like stopping, taking a knee, but it's
yeah,
yeah, it was great. Yeah, a little golf, a little time by the pool. It was a lot of fun. Saw Western Michigan play Arizona State twice, so kind of blended
nice,
hockey and and then stayed out for with some friends. And so
sweet.
yeah, it's a great week. Good getaway. Good
Yeah,
getaway 5 days or whatever. So it's good.
yeah, that's awesome. There you go.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah,
Yep.
when I was in Denver, we ended up hiking a mountain, and I genuinely thought there was a moment where I thought I wasn't making it back down. Um, so it's I totally get what you're saying because it was bad.
Well, that's no joke. I mean, Denver,
Yeah.
50, a mile high. I used to hate playing there. I hated playing there.
Could you
And it was like
I've
if you
always wondered, like,
got
can you really feel that?
oh,
Or is
I
that
did.
just
It
something
drove me
they always
crazy.
just kinda say is like, you know what I mean?
Part of it might have been me just being soft about it, but
Mhm.
I felt like if you got stuck out there your first shift of the night, if you got stuck out there for a minute 20, like, bad luck in your own zone, and you have to defend and just had to get caught with a long shift, like you were done for the whole period. It was just
Right.
your first shift, you just kind of had to like go quick, get off and hopefully off in 25, 30 seconds and just kind of adjust. And everybody's got their thoughts and their theories, and nobody makes a big deal about it. I always thought it was a big deal, but maybe that was me kind of
Mhm.
making a bigger deal about nothing. But
Right. Yeah.
you have to ask other guys what they thought. But I hated
Right.
it. Going
Yeah.
upstairs, everything, man. It was, oh, I hated that place.
Yeah. No, it's definitely part of it. I remember, I mean, like, when I was just in Utah, I felt it a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, it's kinda it's different. And I have asthma, so that's another thing that's
Yeah.
part of it.
Well,
We're
that'll
kinda
do it.
like
Yep.
double,
Yep.
a
Yep.
little bit, so it's not good.
Yep.
Um Just one quick, little thing before we kind of, get into the meat and potatoes of the show. We got a new look, new logo. Had that made. Looks really sweet.
Mhm,
I think it
mhm.
looks awesome. The way it was kind of, done, kind of put out. So that's kind of the way we're going with it. It's a little bit lighter of an orange than what we were using, and a
Mhm.
little more details and stuff too. But it was pretty cool seeing, how the guy who ended up getting it done for me, how he kind of, drew you up. That was interesting. I saw like some of the other like he was sending me updates of it, and some of them it was crazy like how it like was all colored in and everything. So it was really sweet. So yeah, brand new logo for us, and um, yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. So
Good. You spent big bucks on it.
yeah, yeah, it wasn't cheap. I'll say that. Um,
Mhm.
In terms of hockey and whatnot, Mike, Four Nations is obviously finished up. I'd say that was a pretty big success for the NHL. That's one of the probably the times in my life, like, I can't remember a time where hockey was talked about as much as it was after Four Nations. And I remember seeing like videos on TikTok of people being like, "I'm a hockey fan now." Like there's no going back. Like, like, doesn't matter what team you're watching, I'm putting the game on. And then I think that's the biggest thing the NHL probably wanted for this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I think it certainly everybody was a little bit nervous. Is this going to be an all-star game? I think we even talked about it. Is it going to be an all-star game type thing? How hard a
Mhm.
guy's going to play? I think we framed it around the '96 one that um,
Yeah.
where the guys were just really like killing each other. I thought they played really hard, and this certainly took a little bit more of of that type of look. And obviously, the Saturday USA game, USA Canada game with three fights in the beginning, I thought it was great. I thought there had been a lot about it, talking, and great for the guys just to kind of, there was kind of just this talking and a lot of chirping, a lot of shoving and pushing around after whistles and this and that and so just for the guys to just everybody involved just to go out and handle it, I thought it was very old school and
Yeah.
very good. And it probably I mean, it effectively calmed the game down a little bit, kind of had that happen. And then, the guys could just play. And then who knows where that game would have gone without those fights, and just kind of all continued
Right.
and become a terrible distraction. The rest of it probably would have told them, like, you guys need to fight or just get this over with because you're ruining the night,
Yeah.
like, it's like, just get it over with here. What are we doing? So it was really good in that respect. And like you touched on, casual fans getting drawn in. And, I think it's great for the league. And maybe it's fans in cities where they're in the playoff race, and, you get fans, oh, 20 games to go. This is great. My city's in it. My
Right.
team's in it. Oh, this is gonna be fun to watch here for the next couple months. I hope they make the playoffs. So, drawing the casual fan, you'd like to. I don't know if there's a way to analyze that. I'm sure they have their marketing
Yeah.
metrics where they can analyze that, but it'd be really interesting to see if there's what kind of social media uptick they got, and
Yeah. That
viewership
would be
uptick,
interesting.
if they can do that. So pretty cool. It's a big win by the NHL. I think bigger than they expected, and
Yeah.
they got to be can't they're probably still smiling about it.
No, 100%. I think one of the biggest things that comes from it too, Mike, is like you really don't have to tweak much. Like it's just one of them things where it's like just add more teams and like they can do it again next year. It sets up the Olympics and the World Cup to be really good. I know Bevan's talked about trying to have it where it's essentially 8 teams for the World Cup. Um, I don't know how that's going to work without because he said it was going to be 8 teams without adding
Russia and
yeah, like
yeah,
adding like, those kinda like made up teams from the last one where it was like Team Europe and Team North America and whatnot.
sure.
I don't know what they're gonna do with that. Because if you keep it right now, you just add Russia and Czech, that's 6. In terms of like social media and whatnot, I know they said on ESPN I think uh, the championship game was like 9.3 million viewers or like
Mhm,
9.4 or
mhm.
something like that. So like
Yeah,
that's huge. And to
yeah.
have like some really big names and people talking about it. The Kachuk brothers, we were just talking about that before we started here. Like those guys are kind of, on Jimmy Fallon and on New Heights with the Kelsey brothers and all that. So like hockey was kind of in like the forefront of the news and whatnot. And again, it's really good to see, especially because, A, it's been a while, and B, it's one of those things where it definitely gets more people into the game. The only thing that I'm concerned about with this is, do you feel like that this tournament kind of raises the questions and whatnot of how, is there a way to make hockey cheaper for how expensive it is? And you see that there's such an outreach from it. It's like, okay. And then most people are like, how could I play in that? You know what I mean? And then you see how much it costs with, sticks and
Mhm, mhm.
especially like if you want to be a goalie. I mean, goalie pads alone are probably 2-3 grand, maybe more. And
Sure.
I'm not even a goalie and I have no idea.
Mhm.
But like you see the pictures of the, usually like the teams they'll put out the pictures of like all the sticks, and sticks go for like 350, 400. Well, some of those guys have like 8 or 10 sticks there. Like,
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
see how
yeah.
much that stuff adds up and all that too. It's like, and again, that's my only concern is does it bring so many people to see the game? Like that's great. Obviously you want to grow the game, but like actually playing the game, is that, that's obviously still a pretty big hurdle, I think, with how expensive the sport is.
Yeah, I mean, that's always a debate, how to get more people in to hockey more economically, right? And you think as a young parent, a lot of organizations have, like try hockey for a while. They have equipment swaps, garage sales, hockey garage sales where they get rid of stuff. Um, yeah, it is scary for a parent, you're like your son's like, I want to try that, I want to try that. And you can't, it costs a bit to outfit a kid for sure. But like I said, I'm involved, for example, I'm here in the Griffins Youth Foundation in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We pay for, our foundation pays for, I think we have like 350, 400 kids every year paid to,
Right.
equipment, and that equipment, ice time, um, uh, educational help. Like our foundation provides all that, and that's money raised through the Grand Rapids Griffins, American League team, golf outings, stuff like that. And it once you get into that, and I'm kind of privy to those finances, that's a lot. But
Right.
I think, there are ways for parents to get involved on a nicely a cheaper economic commitment. where you're not sure if your kid's going to really like it, and I
Right.
have to buy all this stuff, and it's hard. And I don't know what those answers are. And that's been, that is one
Something
of
they've
those
talked about
things,
for a while.
but yeah, you want to capitalize on that, and you see kids that are like, I want to play in that type of game, that type of game, but maybe I can play there someday. And,
Right.
you'd love to get them involved in the game, and hope that costs would keep them out.
Yeah. No, 100%. And again, it's just one of those things that always, it seems like it's like, a step forward and then sometimes like a step back with that, you know what I mean? Just because it's
Yeah,
so hard. And again, I do think the NHL, like, they definitely try. I mean, they have like the learn to play and they have the things with ball hockey and like they
they
do
do. They
whatever
support
they
a lot of
can.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and they do whatever they can to get people involved. But in terms of USA Canada, is that harder for you to root for one team considering you're Canadian born but raised in the US? Like, do you kinda look at that as like a kinda like you're kinda just happy who wins kinda thing?
I don't know. I guess I'm inherently US, because
Yeah.
but spend most of yeah. But certainly it's just great hockey to watch, right? And it's
Yeah.
hard to, it's I guess, but though, yeah, I guess I like the US, and wanted the US to win or whatever. But
Yeah.
if they didn't, I wasn't really going to lose sleep over it. But it was
Right.
fun to watch. We watched the Saturday game. Yeah, we watched with some Canadian people, and yeah, I think Canada had that was the one that was, they really wanted to win. And it was interesting, all the tariff talk and the booing of the anthems. There was just a lot at stake, and it kind of all came together nicely, and great that Canada and US played at that time, and there was kind of, some bad blood with the fans, and which was understandable, and booing at the anthems, and that's all right. It's fine, whatever. But no, it was just great, and I think everybody, like you said, everybody thought that was it's a win-win for everybody, and
Yeah.
everybody's really happy set up. Now, the Olympics will play different rules. You won't be able to fight like that.
Right.
Any kind of fighting like that will be multiple game misconducts. You're risking getting kicked out of the tournament. So it's going to be a
Right.
little bit calmer in that respect. So people will have to understand that going in, that it's not going to be NHL rules, and um, there'll be international refs that may call games differently, and
Right.
it won't have that same flair a little bit. But certainly this set it up for a great thing, and kind of a half a tryout for a lot of the players.
Yeah,
The Four
for sure.
Nations, set up the Olympics this time next year very nicely.
Right. Yeah, no, 100%. I think the big thing too is it's like, you have the Olympics in between. That's like the big national stage, and then you have the World Cup then, which can kind of be like the kind of free for all kind of thing where everyone
Mhm,
just goes
mhm.
nuts, and
Yeah,
I think it proves how taxing that tournament is on a player too. Like some guys were pretty banged up, and I think Matthew Kachuk is still hurt. I don't think he's going to be back. I mean, he's not out like long term, but he's out for a little bit. Um, and it's one of those things where it's like, you see how much these guys kind of put through it. And that was the biggest thing I was concerned with too. And, we talked about that was how healthy some of the guys would be going into it and coming out of it, considering it's in the middle of the season. But really, like, I think we talked about this before too. Like, it's hard because there's really that's probably the best time for it because
mhm.
it's right before March Madness. The Super Bowl just ended. Baseball's just starting with spring training. Like, it's the best time for it. And like the NBA is kind of in, it's right in their All-Star weekend too. So it's just one of those things that kind of just seemed like it all just kind of fell right in the NHL's lap kind of perfectly there too.
Yeah, I
Um,
like the time of the year, and then just I guess that you touched on what's got to be the only negative is the rate of injury. It's a little bit
right.
scary, and a little bit GM's got to be like, like this is I love it. I love this. I hate it at the same time.
Yeah.
So that would have to be the only negative, is that the risk of injury seemed to accelerate a little bit, and guys were hurt, and then the trickle down after, or the fact that it's still lingering a couple weeks after, and guys still aren't playing is I don't know what you do about that, but probably certainly a negative on the management side when you get a player return from that thing and they're injured. That's it's kind of like they got to hold their breath through that whole thing especially when they love how their player plays, and they know they're going to play
Right.
that way. And it's one thing when they're playing for your team like that versus playing for somebody else, and then you
Right.
can't use their services when they come back. A little bit
Yeah.
frustrating, sure. Maybe the only one negative of the whole thing.
Right. Yeah, no, 100%. Okay, so we have a little bit of deadline talk, and then we'll kind of get into the Flyers' kind of recent play and whatnot. In terms of deadline, like trade deadline's always an interesting time. Always like you always hear rumors and names and guys and how many scouts are in the building and whatnot. It's getting closer. Tomorrow, as you know, today as you're listening to this episode as it drops, uh, we got 1 week away to it. There's obviously been some talk of some Flyers guys, and we talked about Lawton last episode. We talked about Ristolainen pretty much all year and whatnot because he's been one of the bigger guys. But as a player, again, I'm not sure how much of this you kind of dealt with because you seem to be pretty stable with most of your teams that you were with. But did you as a player, like what's or at least being around guys and whatnot, or obviously if you did have that feeling, what's that feeling like as a player around the deadline, like knowing that there's going to be changes coming and some guys aren't going to be here tomorrow, kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's I guess it's there, and some years, certain players feel safer, and some feel like, oh, I might go here. I think there's a couple things. One, on the player side, yeah, like if you feel like you go and you feel like you're a good player and your services would be needed by somebody, um, or you feel like, yeah, I'm a good player here. I know they're not going to get rid of me. Like
Right.
I know that my uh, talents are needed here. Or you're like, well, no, I'm getting older. Nobody's really going to want me anyway. So I mean, there's all different ways, angles to look at it. And then as a player, when the team does make moves, you kind of know where you are in the playoff run here, and you like to get an idea of what the management, kind of how the management thinks, of you guys. Either they'll sell and they'll make a bunch of trades and get rid, get picks and younger guys or prospects, or they'll get rid of somebody big and bring somebody big back in, or add little parts, or just stand pat. So, um, there's like kind of like different options and different feels you get from the GM and the management about what they kind of think of your team,
Right.
and then I could think like our team when I was playing for the Capitals, we won the President's Trophy in 9-10, I think it was, and they loaded us up. They got Scott Walker and then Jason Arnott, um, the guy Scott Hannon, and they made us a little bit older. And then, it was like, okay, all right, now they added some, these elements that we were a little bit short on, veteran center and a veteran, real veteran toughness. And so you're like, okay, all right, I like it. We're going to go for this, And so
Right.
part of the GM, realizing too, if their team's in the right window, what can we tweak this team and see if our group is right there, and can we jump through the window here, and with the right parts. So uh, if everybody had an exact science to this, man, but there is no science to it. It's a hope.
Yeah.
It's a get a guy and cross your fingers, whether you're trading for today or trading for next season. It's you know
Yeah.
to try and see how it goes. What your GM thinks.
Right. Yeah, and 100%. Especially too because you have like when you look at it for the Flyers, like they're obviously not buying. It would be nice, like they've played two really good games out of the break, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But the thing is if they were to make the playoffs, it's a lot of teams they have to jump, and it's a lot of points, and they
Mhm.
probably I think there's like 23 games left off the top of my head, including tonight against Pitt. Um, so it's like you know they could, but there's a lot of teams they mathematically have to jump and whatnot. If they do, obviously they're like it's probably going to be like last year where they sell what they have to. Like last year, it was like, all right, well, they traded Walker, they got a salary retention back with Ryan Johansson. It was that whole thing, but then they got Eric Johnson and Denis Gurianov, and they tried to kind of add another defenseman, add another forward in there because at the time they were relatively pretty healthy. Um, so they didn't have to do a ton, but they sold where they had to, and unfortunately the Walker trade that kind of killed them. I mean, obviously this year they made a bigger move right now. Um, they made a bigger move recently, so you have less offense than Farabee and Frost gone. You have Kuzmenko, who's played well,
Mhm.
um, and that's obviously like a pretty big kind of tryout kind of thing. I think that's the other side of it too. Like you were saying when you guys added with the caps, is like you might be able to get a guy where you can kind of try him out and see where he fits and whatnot. And like that's probably what the Flyers are going to do. I don't know if they're going to trade Risto. There's been a lot of like open rumors and whatnot. I feel like whenever you see more like open kind of rumors and stuff like that, it kind of takes longer for the trades to happen. Um, So I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen. Let me just ask you, like, when you were, obviously, like, in the room and whatnot, like, on that day, and, obviously, like, they share the flyers, I think, have practice on that day, like, is there just, like, a different feeling involved, on that day with, just kinda how everything's going on, you don't know what's gonna happen and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, there is a little bit, and sometimes you're home. It's actually a little bit, I've been on the road. We've been in getting ready for a game that night and just watching the ticker. You come in getting ready for the game. You're just watching the
Right.
ticker go through. And other times you've been at home and, a guy gets traded out, right out from under you at home. And so it's a little bit easier for them to pack up and get out of there. But I mean, you're not going to lie. There's always a bit of uncertainty, but even when it ends at 3, it's like it's not done. It takes like another 15 or 20 minutes
Yeah,
before guys
right.
are before guys are officially kind of like taking a breath because there's always some of these last second ones, and or they take a little, they got to get processed first before, and okayed before they hit the ticker and stuff. So it's been on the road for them. We've been at home for them. We've had games at home. I mean, it's you kind of when you play for 15 years, I guess you go through 15 of them. You're going to see them in
Right.
all different scenarios, right? So, yeah, but they're, and then, I've been there when guys are coming in to get their gear, and some guys are in shock, some guys are happy, some guys are sad. Everybody's just, whatever happens, your world gets turned upside down, either or,
Right.
guys got to leave. A lot of guys have young families and they got to leave their families there. And it makes their lives a little more difficult, but semi short term, unless you get lucky and go on this huge run. But it's certainly been seen it done in all different scenarios.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely interesting. As a fan on my side of it, it's a very fun day because it's like, all right, let's see what happens here. You know what I mean? And kind of go through the motions and see,
Hmm.
what teams are different and whatnot. But okay, let's
Hmm.
move on. Flyers, Flyers recent play has actually been pretty good. 2 games out of the break, scored 12 goals in 2 games. 6-3 win against the Oilers, 6-1 against Pitt. Uh, Side note to that as well, Ovechkin, Mike, I know we talked about that a little bit earlier. No, I think you said December of next year, right?
That's
Next
what I was
season?
thinking. Yeah, that was. I'm going to be
Yeah,
wrong about that.
now he's 12 away
Yeah,
with like 20 something games left.
crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's 4 goals since the playoff or since the 4 nations coming back. Like
Uh-huh.
it's a hat trick and empty netter to close out a hat trick, and then one again the other night. So
Yeah.
um, crazy. Like it's nuts how the pace he's on, and it's just and the fact that it could happen this year is even crazier. The Caps would love a whole summer to hype it and you
Yeah.
know a lot of hype and
Right.
plan for it. At least all of a sudden it moves your plans up. So maybe you got this celebration plan. You're like, oh God, we might have to do this in a month.
Right.
Versus you got all summer to plan it. It'll be sometime in October we can do this, but yeah, it's certainly it's gonna play out. Another story for the NHL. To uh, to see how this finishes out.
Yeah. No, 100%. And it's funny, the other day I was watching highlights of his from I think it was your last year in the league, I think.
Hmm.
Or it might have been the year before that because I know you came to Philly after that. And so many of them, like it's like little, like there was one specifically at the top of my head. It was like a little set play right off the draw, and like right away you just like it was right there on your feet and you're just right back to him, and he
Hmm.
just shoots it right away, and obviously he scored and everything, but it's just like it's always one of them things, like when you're on the ice with him, is the objective literally just get him the puck, or is it, or are you trying set plays, is it, or no, or is it just get Ovechkin the puck and see what happens?
Well, on the those set face-off plays, it's basically Ovechkin back, like Pee Wee. You don't even call it Pee Wee shooter or whatever.
Right.
Pee Wee set up. It's like how you set up when you're old, and you're like, and I would just make sure I got a little pick on somebody, and then bounce and try and go to the net. Because if there was a rebound there, I was hoping to get a goal. But
Get a
you
goal.
come in and sniff to center, kind of pick, sniff to center, bump to Ovi if you can, and then roll off and try and head to the net and see if you can get a rebound um, and that's kind of how that works. And then the PP, I know everybody's changed PK to try and protect him. To try and take away that the pass from, well, I mean, from Mike Green for a long time and John Carlson, for the one timer on the flank, and many defensemen have eaten pucks there, and they've changed, focus. Like, let's just put a guy there and worry about the 4-on-3 on the other side. But Ovi just seems to find a way. And so the other day I was
Yeah.
watching, I think he took a 4.5 minute shift, on a PP. He
Yeah.
just stayed out there and stayed out there. And it's like, you're on the bench and it's kind of like, if you're the guy that has to take Ovi on the PP, you're like, oh man, I might, depending on how he's feeling or what he's thinking, I might not get any time on the PP today,
Right.
if I'm supposed to replace him. But it's always been that way. Even when I was there, he kind of had this little luxury to stay longer, and nobody was really going to say anything. And that's just it's kind of the way
Kinda,
it was. Like the Jordan
yeah.
rules in basketball, so there's some Ovi rules too out there. When you learn them pretty quick when you're playing in Washington. The Ovi
Right.
rules. Yeah, yeah,
That's funny.
yeah.
Yeah, and just kind of taking it back a little bit, with the Flyers. Yeah, I mean, two good games against Edmonton and Pitt. 12 goals, like I mentioned. Kuzmenko gets his first goal with the Oilers. The Michkov, Couturier, and Tippett line looks great. It looks like one of them lines that kind of like the Cates Brink and Forrester line that's pretty much been together what feels like the entire season now. And I know we talked about that before. Those two lines, if the Michkov, Coots, and Tippett won, and they've scored in both games. They've just had moments where they just look great together. Um, I think it ties in a little bit to what we were talking about with Couturier last episode, where it's like there's kind of no point in getting rid of him. And
Yeah.
you see some of the plays he makes on that line, and you're like, yeah, that's probably why. Even though he makes a lot of money, he's a little bit older, but if you can find the right guys to play with him, and whatnot, and that's kind of always been the thing with Coots too, and it just seems like one of those lines that really can click. And I think that's what the Flyers need right now is try to figure out what you can do, and obviously, the players are gonna obviously push to try to make the playoffs. I don't know if it's one of those things where last year, they were in for so long, no one thought they would be there. Now it's like they're not there. Um, no one still thinks that they're going to get in. What if they actually turn around and do it? Who knows? Their goaltenders played really good for them to do it. Urson's been lights out. It's like 11-4-1, 915 save percentage, 232 goals against average. He's got one shutout, and he was really good for Sweden in the Four Nations game against the States too. But the only thing that kind of takes away all that, Mike, is that March is a really tough month, and you got some really tough games. You got the Jets twice, who right now I think are the best team in the league outside of Washington, who we were just talking about. You got Washington again. You have Dallas. You go on the road for a little bit. You have Tampa. Like you have some teams that are kind of right there with you, and you have a lot of games as well. So it's just kind of one of those things where could they make it? Maybe we'll see, but it all kind of depends on a lot of factors to kind of for them to make it or whatnot.
Yeah, well, I mean, the positive is they've been fighting all year, right? So it's not
Right.
like they have to change gears and try and find another level. They know you get the feeling, and just watching the team, it's every night's a battle, right? So
Yeah.
that's which is great for them. And that's kind of, how it's going to have to be toward the end. You go back to the Mishkov Koots Tippett line there. That's a great, it has the makings of a nice group. Koots can go get pucks and, as long as they do that role. From what I can tell, Mishkov had really enjoyed some time off as a young
Yeah.
player and his workload, the amount of games and the amount of travel and all that, for first year guy who's not used to kind of the pace of the league and the demands on him every night, or from the league itself and from torts and what you have to be responsible for. So I think he enjoyed some time off, and Sam Erston over in the Four Nations played great there, and like you said, he's had a great run since the holidays, and so things are lighting up. But this is the meat of the season, and I think we said on our podcast a couple weeks ago, said once you get it back from that Four Nations, it's here comes, it's the final lap, and everybody's running for the checkered
Yep.
flag. So every game's going to mean a ton, and it's good. Like I said, team's been grinding whole year, so they don't really have to change their identity or pretend that things are any different, or it's just kind of the same games. Grind out wins, and like to see them win those close ones. So you got to come out on the right side of more close ones than not to really make up any ground here.
Yeah. No, 100%, especially because again, like, we've talked about this so many times, like, they can't like, they're not gonna score 6 goals every night, and, they've done it. They've had a little offensive kind of blip here
Yep.
out of the break, but they're not gonna do that every night, probably won't even do that tonight.
Yeah.
I doubt that. That would be crazy if they did 3 games and have 18 goals, but that seems like a really tall task, and especially because the way Pitt has been playing, I'm expecting a lot different of an effort in this one, but, it's just one of those things where, again, they got a lot of games. It's a lot of, teams that are much better than them, higher than them in the
Yeah, in the
standings.
standings, yep, yep.
Yeah, and they have to really kinda grind if they wanna do that, and then at the same time, it's like and that this has been my point this entire time with this too, and, we mentioned this before, was that's hard to judge for a general manager is like, all right, well, as an, outlook of a team, like you have to kind of change some things in terms of guys being here and whatnot. And like they have to get better. But at the same time, you don't want to completely blow up that room who's is trying to make the playoffs and has played their ass off to even try and get somewhere close to that spot. So that's the hard part. And I know we've talked about that before, but I don't know. It just seems like one of those things that um, you know, you just kinda have to wait and see what
Well,
happens
yeah,
towards
I
the end of
mean,
the year.
yeah, with a trade deadline in, about 8 days, it's I've seen GMs kind of wait for these 8 days and then decide,
Yeah.
something bad happens that, okay, well, we're not making it. I'm gonna make some moves for the future. Or you
Right.
get on a nice run here and be like, well, I think we can, if maybe if we add this and this, we got a chance to get in. And
Yeah.
again, if it all makes sense to Danny and it helps him now and doesn't, doesn't hurt the future, then you can do it, And so,
Right.
yeah, it's hard to say. There's so many things to weigh, and uh, guys for sure aren't going to make trades just to make trades, and just because they make an emotional move or something, or feel like they're influenced by a 7 day period where they feel like they got to do something. They don't, And so, yeah. So it's always trade deadline's always fun. The buildup is fun. I mean, there've been some major ones already, and so hopefully
Yeah.
there's going to be more fun ones to come.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. So, gotta see what happens. Um, yeah, I mean, outside of that, that's all we got, Mike. Another episode in the books. Did just wanted to say thank you, out there to everybody because in the past, like, couple I think, like, 2 months, we were in the top 150 of hockey podcasts in the whole country of the US. So that was really cool. That was something cool that hit my email the other night. So, um, is again, it's been really fun doing this. So again, it's huge, and thank you to everybody who listens each week and whatnot. It's been a lot of fun. So
Good. Yeah, that's good. That's all great news for our podcast, and
yeah,
yeah, thank people for listening to it. It's been fun.
yeah, it's been great. So yeah, I mean, outside of that, Mike, anything else?
No, no, that's it. You guys said that you went to the Wives Carnival the other day. I used to love that. That was very good.
Yeah,
Wives
yeah,
Carnival is
yeah.
always a lot of fun.
It was fun. Yep. Always a good time, and the carnival's always it's one of my favorite events that they do. So
Did they
um,
still make the goalies? I always felt bad for the goalies because they would have to get like half dressed, and they would have to be
yeah,
they wouldn't cover that little section of ice, and they'd have to take all these shots. So they would just,
right.
oh man, that's a
I think they
lot. That's a
changed
lot
it
of
now where it's like a couple years ago it was like Snyder kids,
yeah.
the kids that would play, and now I think it's actually guys from the Flyers Warriors program,
Yeah, oh
some guys
yeah,
that
that's
help
good.
out and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
and like
yeah,
volunteer.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't remember. I think it's probably been like I think the last Flyers goalie to do it might have been Steve Mason. That's probably
Oh
going
yeah, yeah.
back
Mhm,
like
mhm.
probably 7, 8 years now, something like that. I
Yeah.
think it's been a bit, but yeah, that is interesting.
That
It's
was
like
a
everyone
long
else
day
gets
for those
to kinda
guys. I mean, they're like the only
yeah,
ones who had to work. The rest of us were up
right,
there just kinda signing and, doing, I
yeah,
did they called it like, knock hockey or table hockey. You come
mhm,
out of there and your knuckles got whacked by little 7-year-olds. You come out of there with sore little cuts on your knuckles. You're like, "Oh, man." Like, these kids, they miss the puck and then stab you with a stick, or across the
right,
table, or it was just oh, man, yeah. That wasn't my favorite. I didn't enjoy that
yeah,
one. Yeah.
that's funny.
Signing autographs is always fun. Have a couple moments with people. That was always good. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
our kids loved it. They run berserk around the rink and,
Right.
just have a good old time. So it was, yeah, a lot of fun.
It's always a fun day.
Makes a lot of
Yeah,
money. Very organized. The Flyers did a hell of a job with it. They do a
yeah,
really, really nice job with it. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, they do, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks everybody again, for all the support as always. Check out Kickin' with Knuble, and, we'll be back next time. See you guys.
See ya.